Oh, they told me to tell you guys that the show is huge in Brazil.
It is?
Did you know that?
No.
I don't even know it's huge anywhere.
I watched the whole time. I'm like, no, don't you lie.
But when we do the like Insta lives and people say where they're from, I'm always like, where are you watching this from? Because my friends and family in Canada can't seem to figure out how to find the show.
Really?
Yeah.
It's tricky in Canada.
It's tricky in Canada and it's tricky in Australia.
But like people are like from Argentina or like
The fans have their way.
I was going to say, they figured it out for like
My
every show
family
now.
has their ways. You think they're doing it legally? No, they are not. They always apologize to me.
No.
Like, I wish I could buy
that's
it.
what
but
I'm like,
can't.
I think you can maybe use this link. Last year I like found a little streaming link. But not everyone wants to watch it like that.
And it's not because they don't want to watch it on TV and give us the viewership, but I think no matter how you can consume the show, like, no shade. Watch it however you want. I don't care.
You do what you have to
Enjoy
do.
it.
I support it.
So one of the things I think the show does really well is intersectionality of identity, and I was curious for both of you, just like what that like complex exploration of like class and like sexual orientation and race, what that is going to look like for both of you in season 2. If there are particular like confluences of those identities that you're really excited to see the fans or have the fans see in the season.
I think there's a lot we explored in season 1, and I'm really proud of season 1 of the show. But I think we definitely have further to go and more to explore. And there were things that we didn't explore that I wish we hadn't, but then we didn't get canceled, so now we're able to come back and like explore more. I know Kat in episode 2 is going to be doing a bit of self-exploration when it comes to her race and the fact that she is biracial, which I am too, so I definitely understand that and connected with that.
And she has a really interesting conversation with another biracial character.
Yes, and I think it's going to be really interesting conversations the whole season. Every episode is so wonderful in my opinion, and you also get to see her explore what it's like to be in a relationship with a woman, or a relationship period, for the first time, which is another thing that I totally get, because I was very late bloomer when it came to relationships. I was always like, it's not for me, I don't want to do it, and like it gets you at some point,
Someone will get you.
Yeah, but it's like a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful thing to explore, and I'm really excited for people to see that. It's great.
For Dina, she's just obviously she's an immigrant. We're hoping to be a more permanent immigrant, so we explore that a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing with intersectionality is like the whole is more complex than like the parts, and there are just so many stories to tell, and we're just barely even scratching at the surface, and hopefully we just have an opportunity to keep getting deeper with them and developing more into who these people are.
So I think one of the things I really love about the Bold Type is the strength of the friendships and how that they're portrayed. Because so often female friendships are, shown as being competitive or catty, and that may largely be because they're written by men. So what is your feeling as far as how the friendships are portrayed and why that's important to change that narrative?
I think the friendship of the 3 girls is the heart of the show. It's the reason why the show works, I think, because you want to see what happens with each of them individually, but you also want to see how they navigate that together. And then also, even with the romantic relationships on the show, they're still rooted in a place of friendship
And support.
and connection. And and support. But I'm not surprised that people are connecting to that, and I am surprised that it's becoming as big as it is, and I hope it continues to become bigger and more people find it.
It's cool to be a part of a show where the big bad isn't like another main character or person or woman. It's really this growing up, and the circumstances that they're in, but that drama doesn't come from each other.
Right. That's what I appreciate. The authenticity of the female relationships.
And it's not perfect. It's messy.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
They fight, yeah. You can fight and still
some mornings
be
I'm
rooted
like-
in compassion.
I'm like, Megan, Katie, leave me alone. I'm tired. I am PMSing. I do not want to hear your shit right now. But, it comes from love, and like everyone's so wonderful and supportive in the real world as well as in the show. So it's
I think that's really cool too. It's a really great supportive set to be on, and everyone genuinely really likes each other, loves each other, and are friends. And for a lot of us, this is our first show. We're all dealing with new experiences together as well, and get to help each other out in real life, navigate that. So I think that reflects on screen too.
best friend forever. If we could be more tacky, let us know.
Nicole, I had a question for you. So when you were talking a little bit about Adina explore, she's here temporarily on her work visa for 3 months. Are we going to get to see, because I know the immigration storyline, that was one of the things that was most celebrated for the way that was portrayed in season 1. So with her having to figure out what she's going to do for work and stuff, how much of that are we going to get to see from Adina, like struggling to find work because she only has such a short amount of time to figure it out?
Yeah, without giving anything away, I think that is a big part. That's what Adina is dealing with this season. The most current, what's going on with her. It's such a tricky thing, and me too. I'm Canadian, so as someone in the United States, I'm also an immigrant.
Right.
And you need to get work to get more work. But you need to have paperwork to get work.
You have to be in the US
have work
to get
and be
work,
in the US to get work. But it's like such a, you have to find not loopholes. It's just a real struggle.
Yeah.
And I think we see Adina, who's like always, she's so ambitious, and she's so, nothing can really stop her, and she's always gone after what she wants, and she kind of stumbles a little this season 2 and hits a few roadblocks, I think, in that regard. So I think that's cool to watch that even her, everyone stumbles a little.
Was that easier just because you said being Canadian and having the similar struggles? I mean, obviously it's not to the same extent, but was that easier for you to relate to Adina because you kind of understood the system and how hard it can be?
Of course, yeah, I definitely understand the American immigration
Yeah.
system and visa system.
Really?
So sometimes even when things were being written, or I could, contact someone and be like, it's actually like this, or I remember last season even when they were, when we were talking about her passport, where is her passport from, and I'd be like, well, she can't really have a Middle Eastern passport. She wouldn't be able to live in Europe for the last 10 years.
Right.
Borders are a strange, complicated thing, and
I've been living here for 9 years, and I'm Brazilian, so I dealt with all this.
Yeah.
I was crying when I was
It's really
watching the
emotional,
episodes,
scary
because
process.
It's so real. It's a struggle.
It's your
and that's
home.
why the show is so successful. One of the reasons the show is so successful internationally, because besides the friendship, this is a real problem.
And I think that when you start to get attached with the place and with the people and the relationships you make, the stakes become even higher. And I can definitely relate with that.
I mean, I'm a dual citizen, but none of my family members are.
Okay.
I was born a dual citizen.
Right.
Very complicated, blended family situation that we're not going to get into.
Yeah.
But, it's hard. I'm very separated from my family, and have been very separated from people that I've loved in the past. So it wasn't easy for me to also, identify with your writing.
Right.
And like Nicole said,
And I
sometimes
remember-
it feels like they're bugging our rooms.
Yeah, especially last year, with the Muslim ban. I at one point was worried that I was going to be on one of those lists, and thankfully the country I was born in is not, but the country my mom was born in is. So she may at some point have trouble. Even if it doesn't happen, knock on wood, you hope that no one ever has to deal with that. But it is just a scary thing to have to worry about when one day it wasn't an issue and the next day it is.
Uncertainty.
That uncertainty is very scary, and feeling like you could possibly be separated from your loved ones.
Will we see any of Adina's family this season, or like will she get to have relationships outside of, or build relationships outside of her romantic relationship with Kat?
We do see more of Adina's world, for sure, and I think that's connected to Kat too, because Kat is such a big part of Adina's life now, and I think we open up that world, and Kat gets to meet and be introduced to some of Adina's friends and colleagues, and that's very cool.
She's very cool. She has a lot of friends, and they're all really cool. They have cool hairstyles. They wear cool clothes. I'm very excited about that part of the season, kind of showing a bit more of Adina's world.
I think sometimes the personal relationships really steal the show on the bold type, but sort of fundamentally it is a workplace story. Tell us a little bit about Kat's job this year and what she's doing with her professional life, and also if we're going to learn more about Adina's art in that world as well.
Well, I think, last season, you got to see Kat kind of make these new strides in her career, and by the end of the season, it was like, is she even happy? Is this even what she wants to do? And I think she needed that moment to kind of separate herself and go and chase love for a minute, to kind of come back and feel reinvigorated and feel like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is something I'm passionate about, which I definitely understand. I've had my own ups and downs with even this industry that I'm a part of now. I've taken time before. So that's something I really connect with, and I think this season you're going to get to see Kat kind of, she's going to come up against the board members time and time again, and I don't think she'll ever stop, which makes me so happy.
That was a great first scene in the episode that we saw at the panel today, when she's in the boardroom with all the white males, and just like, she's like, no, this is actually not how it's supposed to be. That's a great scene. And
my favorite is the scene after that when she's explaining it to Sutton, and what she's like, it's like they were all like, what? This hasn't happened before? I love it.
Yeah.
We did so many weird takes, I was like throwing out some weird shit. They used the one that was less weird, and I'm glad. I don't know.
Was that you mostly ad-libbing then, or was any of that was okay?
Yeah, a lot of the show is very open, kind of.
Yeah, we get the scripts, and then we read them, and we have thoughts, and then we discuss our thoughts, and then we decide which battles are worth fighting for.
It's a collaboration. Yeah. We're so blessed to have a room full of writers that are so down to what do you think? And great, what do you think? How can we make this work with the story? And I don't know, I'm very honored to be a part of this conversation, because not every show you get to do that.
No, especially now, it's like they know us, and they're hoping to write for you, and sometimes they say something and you're like, oh my god, I wish I had thought of that. And sometimes you say something, you're like, what if we said it this way? Or sometimes we discover things just through our own discussions. It's a really cool process. Everyone brings a lot of themselves to the characters.
Do you have a lot of women directors on the show, or
I think at least half of this season, and our last season as well. It's a real priority for them, and that's, amazing. We're blessed with this incredible, diverse crew that have all worked together forever, because Montreal is a relatively small
film and television.
There's not that much production in Montreal compared to Vancouver or Toronto, which is where we shoot most of the show in Montreal. We do go to New York, but we're so blessed to have this crew that have known each other for decades, and some of them had babies together, and then they broke up, and they were married,
and no longer together, and not dating each other's friends.
And they grew up together, and they used to throw parties together.
They've done I think all the X-Men films shoot there, so they've all worked on those together. Yeah, it's a really cool environment.
Very close-knit set with people from every different walk of life, sexuality, ethnicity, everything. It's the most amazing room to be in, and
our director, that goes for our directors, everyone.
From top to bottom, it's really great, and we can always be better, but you know.
Is there a storyline missing for you guys? I mean, you would love to see, because you touch immigration, you touch fashion and friendship, and you were talking about everything. So is there something that you want to talk about and you haven't yet?
I mean, last season I really wished I was like, let's talk about race, baby, and then we never did. And then now we are. So and doing it in such an incredible way, and I'm really glad that we kind of waited, because it gave us a chance to explore it in a really different, unique way that hasn't really been done before, and something I have never seen. But in the future, I'd love for the show to incorporate some non-binary characters. I think that's really important, and I have no doubt we'll get there. You know, we have a good group behind us.
I'm like scared to even say that, because I feel this is my first experience being a series regular, right? So you're getting the scripts and you don't know where it's going. They're not really telling you the arc. So at the beginning of the season, I'm like, well, why isn't this happening? Or I feel like, you know, there should be more of this, or this isn't making sense, or this is who Adina is, guys. And then by the end, I'm like, oh. I see what you were doing there.
You're smarter than me.
Yeah. Like, you could have just told me.
Yeah, but I love.
We're the last to know anything.
I love not knowing, because I sit down and read the scripts like a fan. I'm like, oh my god, what's happening with Richard and Sutton? Like, no, we did it. Like, where's that straight? You know, I have my moments too. So like, it's cool that I feel like I'm going on that journey with the fans too, and having a lot of the same thoughts that the
Maybe
fans
because it is a longer process shooting a television show, to stay like really on your toes. Maybe it's good not to know.
Yeah, I mean that's always been my.
But
I love it.
I'm just not used to that, so I'm like, what is this? And you want to make sure that you're doing the storyline justice, and there is this fear that if you don't know where it's going, then you won't be able to do that. But I mean, this is a tried and true method. It's worked for many shows that I watch and admire. So who am I to just change it up? But tell me everything. Well,
I'm sorry.
so we have some cast members that know how to squeeze out little tidbits.
Oh yeah, Katie. It's Katie.
She has her ways.
Like, I don't want to tell me what's going on. How do you know this shit? I not know this shit. It's crazy.
I think your characters are really strong and courageous role models, especially for younger girls. And I'm wondering what makes you feel your strongest personally? What was something that you...
Oh, you mean like movies and TV?
Anything, whether it's, I don't know, for some people it's working out that makes them feel their strongest and
I wish
most
it
in
was
their
working.
power. I mean, what is something that makes you feel strongest in your most power?
A fun one, I love dancing. I think when I'm dancing, I feel very free and sexy and in my power. But then also, I think helping people, I think that's very much a part of who I am. Helping friends or family makes me feel good and in my power.
I mean, music's always been a really big part of my life. Both my parents are musicians, and my mom's an opera singer, so she was like, you're not listening to this, you're listening to Nat King Cole, Mahalia Jackson, Erykah Badu, and D'Angelo, and she was so specific, so, and I hated it as a kid. I was like, I want to listen to the Spice Girls, but she... now I listen to the Spice Girls because Mom's not here. But like music has always been a huge part of like what makes me feel powerful, and you know, movies like Coffee and Cleopatra Jones and Jackie Brown and like, you know, What's Love Got to Do with It? Like, movies are one of my huge comforts, you know, sit down with some snacks. Yeah.
Well, Amanda, I have a question for you. So obviously you're new to the show this year, showrunner, executive producer, writer, everything. What was it like for you to just, you know, jump right in and get going on such a show that was so loved after last summer and after the first season?
I didn't think about it at all. I just honestly, I mean, it just was. I came in as a fan of the show, so that made it easy, and that I just loved the show, and I wasn't coming in wanting to like try to change anything or fix anything. I came in just wanting to continue what they had done so beautifully, and so it was just, that part was a pleasure, and then there's also a part of just the responsibility of knowing that people did love the show so much and wanting to honor that, and those were sort of my guides in terms of moving forward.
Did you have any goals when you first came in the writer's room? Was like, I want to try to do this season, I want to keep this from season 1. Like, did you have any goals going into starting to look at season 2?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I really wanted to go deeper into the characters' backstories and understanding like some of the decisions that they made. That was something that was really interesting to me, and like learning more about that. And in terms of the romances, it's sort of like trying to find ways to have those go deeper and evolve them, and also, you know, keep people sort of on the edge of their seats. And that part is super challenging, but also really fun.
One of the things I really appreciate about Sutton's character is in the first season her past struggles, because I feel like that's something you don't see as much on television in general. And I was just curious what if that's going to be a part of her character in season 2, if we're going to see more of that. I know you mentioned backstories, so maybe seeing her family or
yeah, that was something that is definitely going to be in season 2 that we're really excited about. Because Sutton, I feel like was a little bit mysterious personally in the first season, outside of her relationship with Richard. So I think that was really important. We talked about that, and we go to Sutton's hometown, and we meet her mom and her ex-boyfriend, and that's my favorite episode of season 2. Yeah, I think that people will really enjoy it. It's just, you know, to have the opportunity to kind of understand someone from where they came from and stuff. It kind of changes the way that you see them sometimes, for better or worse or whatever, whether or not it makes you more empathetic or sympathetic or any of those things. So yeah, I'm excited.
What was the most challenging thing for you in season 2, and the most rewarding that you found from your story arc?
Obviously Sutton and Richard split up in the first episode, so that was, I guess, kind of challenging, but also exciting in terms of like, I think there was a sense of relief sort of that came with the fact that she had at least made a decision about what she wanted to do, and then we were going to see her like fully dive into it, and like, what does that look like? And like, it feels so good sometimes when you see a character who's been working so hard and struggling so much, like, get a win in the fashion world and stuff. And when something lovely happens, like she's talking to Rachel Antonoff in the first episode, like, it's so pleasing. You're like, oh my god, it's working. It's, you know, so that was great. But yeah, I think it's interesting. The most challenging and also the most rewarding thing about season 2 was sort of the decision that she made to separate from Richard.
I'm wondering about writing a show for young people in the age of like such overwhelming social media, especially coming in for season 2. You've had this huge reaction to season 1. Everybody has very strong feelings about the couples and all that kind of stuff. Did you have that in your head going into the writing process, and how hard is it to sort of keep it out of your mind so it doesn't influence where you go with the characters, or does it influence where you go with the characters?
It's kind of a duality. It's like we very much, when we are talking about the storylines and writing the storylines, we think a lot about, you know, we want to respect our audience and being respectful of them, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that we are going to constantly give them what they want when they want it. And because I think that doesn't always work out, to give people what they want when they want it, because you don't want every episode to be exactly the same. Like, you need those sort of ups and downs, and also that's what life is. I mean, it goes up, it goes down, and so that's sort of how we approach it. And yeah, the social media thing is really cool, because you do get to have this conversation and this dialogue, even though I'm very silent on Twitter, but you get to hear what people say, and that part's really nice. Yeah.
What about you for fan reaction to like everything in the minute as the show's going on?
That also, I'm not a big Twitterer either, so it's like last year when we were premiering for the first time, engaging that way and stuff was like kind of mind-blowing, because you go up, we shoot in Canada and we're up there for however many months, kind of just in our own little bubble doing the thing every day, and you forget about the part where it doesn't belong to you anymore. It's out there and people have opinions about it, and some of them are great and some of them are not, and all of it is fair. So I think, to be able to interact with people so easily and to get a sense of like how excited people have been has been really special.
How does knowing you have a season 3 affect writing season 2, if it does?
Well, I mean, it's just such a gift, because there were storylines that we really wanted to do this season, and we couldn't do them, and so for like whatever reason we didn't get them, and knowing I'm like, oh, don't worry, we're fine, that we can go there is just great. It's just a huge luxury.
I relate so much to your character because I fall for someone at work years and years ago, and my friends were watching the show in Brazil and they texted me, did you see that? It was so funny. I was like, I can't believe I would be able to tell her that. Yeah. But my question is, has anyone ever told you a story like that you relate to your character?
Yes. And also, it's crazy. My roommate at the time, when the first season premiered, was in a secret relationship with someone at her office.
Good for you.
Yes, and it was crazy because she was and is brilliantly smart and talented and so good at her job. And it was literally that thing of like, if people find out about this, people can't find out about this. Right. So eventually the relationship did progress to like a pretty serious one, at which point they did go to their boss and say, we're together. But of course, you don't want to do that at the beginning, because if it's just new and you're like, I don't know if we're just having fun or are we hanging out. So it took them a while to get to that spot, but it was crazy because she was going through that when I was, and so the episodes would come out and she was like, oh my god, I relate so much. Yeah, so I felt good. I felt like we had done that storyline justice when she kind of said that to me.
I love it.
And going off of Sutton and Richard and all of that, I mean, at the end of episode 1 of season 2, we see Sutton make the choice that she's not going to be with Richard at this time, at least. So, and because so much of Sutton's character was tied to Richard in season 1, do you still have hope that at some point she will be at a place in her life where she can choose Richard and choose that love? And B, what was it like getting to explore Sutton? Like you were talking about getting to explore the backstory, but was it like getting to explore Sutton away from that storyline?
That's 2 really great questions. The first question, yes, I do hope that she gets to that place. Like, personally, I feel like because the chemistry is so great between Sutton and Richard, and the relationship was so like loving and great. It would be really satisfying to see that played out. Like, I think connecting with people can be hard in the real world, and when you find someone that you feel that way about, to not be able to like really go down that road and see what's there is like, it's heartbreaking. So I do hope that at some point, she'll be able to kind of really give herself to him and he to her, and see, if what they have really is the real deal. And then the second part of your question was, what was it like experiencing
just getting to
Sutton?
experience Sutton aside from her relationship with Richard and like exploring more of her.
Yeah, I mean, it was so special to me this year to be able to do that. It really, really, I think, deepened for me just how high the stakes are for her, and just why her career is so important, and she has already sacrificed so much to get to where she is, and has struggled so much just to be an assistant, and I think it really offered some pretty amazing perspective, and I think the audience will probably feel the same.
And there's also awesome stuff with you and Oliver, which was like,
yes,
they're so much fun.
The Sutton-Oliver relationship is evolving and so special. Like, one of my favorite parts of being on the show is getting to work with Steven, who's just so lovely.
Yeah,
That will be the lasting relationship. Yeah, it really has been beautiful to have that relationship evolve as well.
Watching season 1 as a fan and then coming in season 2, was there a character, particularly from the supporting cast, that you were really excited about deepening and telling us more about them? Someone you felt was maybe underexplored in season 1?
I mean, there was stuff about every character that I was super excited about, like talking about Sutton's character and exploring the privilege and like what it's like to go into the fashion world and not come from that. I was super excited about that. One thing that I was excited about was exploring Kat and her racial identity, and because I felt like that was something that didn't really get talked about that much in season 1, that I was excited to talk about and to learn what it was like to be a biracial woman in this world, and where did she get her views and how did it come from, and we get to meet her parents, which I'm really excited about in episode 2, and so that was really gratifying to be able to do that.
Have any of the cast members actually contributed some of your own experiences into the storylines?
We talk a lot. I mean, there's any specific things, but I mean, like Aisha and I talked a lot about that storyline in episode 2, and we talk about stuff, and so it informs things. But is there anything?
I don't think there's anything really specifically personal that we've run with, but we talk all the time about everything.
There's a body positivity. There's a body positivity episode coming up, and we had just very real, intimate conversations about the things that we find challenging about ourselves and how we love ourselves, and so that was really personal.
Yeah, that was great.